Hi, this is Padmaja. Today we're going to see about heredity and variation. Let's start with the definition. The definition goes like the inheritance of characteristics through generation is called heredity. For example, when a cow gives birth to a calf, both the mother cow and the calf share common characteristics like body design, physiological functions, etc. that are specific to their species. Now, this is heredity. When an adult gives rise to a young one, and the young one inherits the character of the parents. But, being the progeny of the parent, the progeny individual need not just be the replica of what its parents are. So, when a progeny is born, it inherits the parent's character and also show its own variation. Now let's have a deeper look on heredity. The rules of heredity determine the process by which the traits and the characteristics are relatively inherited. The inheritable characters can be morphological or anatomical or physiological or reproductive and are also known as trait. And these traits are contributed by both the parents' genetic material. So we can conclude that both mother's and father's genetic material influence the child's trait. Next we'll see about the father of genetics, Gregor Johann Mendel. He worked out the first ever scientific experimental study on heredity. He was an Austrian Augustinian monk. He observed variation in the characteristics of pea plant which was in his garden. Seeing the variation, he was curious to know what will happen if two pea plants with different characters are crossed. So, he selected pea plants with contrasting characters in their seed shape, seed color, flower color, pod shape, pod color, flower position and stem height. Under these criteria, Mendel did an experiment called monohybrid cross. In that, he selected tall and dwarf pea plants and allowed them to grow naturally. And he observed that these tall plants produce tall plants for generations. Similarly, dwarf plants produce dwarf plants generation after generations. Hence, he termed that the tall and the dwarf plants as wild types or pure breeding varieties. At first, he crossed a wild type tall plant with a wild type dwarf plant, and then he noticed all the plants were tall in the F1 generation, that is first filial generation, and there were not any medium height plant or dwarf plants. When such a F1 tall plant is allowed to have self-pollination, both the tall and the dwarf plant appeared in the second filial generation, that is F2, in the ratio of 3:1. This indicates that both tallness and dwarfness were inherited in the F1 plants, but only tallness trait was expressed. Since the first experiment of Mendel considered the inheritance of a single trait, that is height of the plant, it is called monohybrid cross. With reference to the monohybrid cross, we can say that the phenotype of an organism is its morphological characters like tallness or their color. In simple words, any observable characters are called phenotype. Likewise, an organism's genetic composition of alleles for a particular character is called genotype. Let's see the physical basis of heredity. Genes are the base of heredity. They are inherited from one generation to other. The genes are represented by a pair of alleles. These alleles determine the phenotype of an organism. For example, in this picture, the flower exhibits purple color only if either of the allele is dominant. Otherwise, it is in white color.